Órale! Bienvenidos and welcome to the Familia FFP podcast. This is your host Jorge Martin, NFL Insider Series. We're even hotter than the weather right now, and it's good. And we're going to the land of don't stop believing, where the lights never go down in the city. We're going to 49ers country today with our amigo Cam Inman, joining us from San Jose Mercury News and the East Bay Times, part of the Bay Area News Group. Also, make sure you're following him at Cam Inman on Twitter and on the Instagram machine, 49ers.cam. Mi amigo, let's talk some 49ers. ¿Cómo estás?
Bien, gracias. ¿Y tú?
Muy bien, muy bien. Estás en tu casa, so I'm happy whenever I talk to you. You're one of my originals. I think you were one of the first people to say yes.
Yeah.
So it's been 4 years in a row. It's
awesome. Yeah. It's good. I'm glad we're still doing it.
Glad. So I'm gonna plug a couple things first. Also, first off, make sure you're following Familia FFB on YouTube. Hit that like, hit that subscribe. I've seen the numbers jumping with this NFL Insider Series, so keep that going.
Good.
Also, oh yes, well, because I get great guests like you, mi amigo. Also, when you go to Underdog Fantasy, use the promo code Familia. Get for on your initial deposit, every dollar you get matched. So get in there. Best ball is the best. So Cam, before we jump into the team, you got some news. Tell us about the franchise.
I have a book coming out, and it should be out like as the season gets going. It's called The Franchise San Francisco 49ers. You can pre-order it now on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Triumph Books, which is the publisher. So it's when they came to me with this book offer, I get book offers like, hey, can you do this here? And like for years I said, no. And so this year I said, look, okay, I realize they've not won a Super Bowl in 30 freaking years, right? So it's like, what is new? So I'm like, well, I've covered the team. This will be my 25th year covering the 49ers. And so I've seen a lot, heard a lot. And what this book kind of encapsulates is it teaches you what you need to know about the 49ers, but in my own unique perspective from one-on-one interviews I may have had with Bill Walsh or Al Davis or John Madden over the years, Montana, Steve Young, to newer interviews of guys maybe that just like Joe Staley just retired, or Frank. Here's a big one. I got Frank Gore and George Kittle both to write forwards for the book. I mean, that alone is worth buying the book, because what I got out of them was very heartfelt appreciations of the 49ers and what the 49ers mean to them. And I just wanted to get somebody that's more, I think people are going to get back into books. Like we're on our phones constantly watching you and everybody and me. But I think like magazines and books, it's a great way to get off the screen. And I think that's going to kind of make a comeback now. So now I wanted to make sure I gave people something cool to read. So there's chapters on your quarterbacks. There's chapters on like the team legends like Eddie D, Ronnie Lott, Jerry Rice, right? Then you got chapters on the draft picks, the free agents, the best trades, the Super Bowls. I mean, it's like they won 5, right? Now they've lost 3 in a row, but they're going to get there again this year, I predict. Then chapters on the stadiums, and then a big acknowledgement. So it was a fun project. It should be out, I think, in August at some time. The official release date is September 24th. But you can pre-order now. And if you need to get it signed or something, track me down at a game or whatever, happy to do it. And it'll be cool. It's a good project. So thanks for having me on to talk about it. Now let's talk the franchise San Francisco 49ers for you.
Oh my goodness. Well, yeah, one of the most fun offenses to talk about for fantasy. And last year when we had this at this time, we were kind of talking kind of like if Brock Purdy is healthy,
yes,
he proved it. The guy threw for over 4,000 yards, over 4,200 yards in under 450 attempts. One of the most efficient offenses, over 30 touchdowns, had more fantasy points than Patrick Mahomes.
Yep.
I mean, is there another step for him to take in this offense with Kyle Shanahan?
This is really interesting, right? Because there was so much question this time last year because he had not started throwing on a surgically repaired elbow. And then he throws for a franchise record, 4,280 yards with a game to spare. Remember, he sat out the regular season finale. And so history says, well, nobody's ever thrown for that many yards in 49er history. I think he's going to throw for more this year because they have all the weapons, right? You had Christian McCaffrey as the NFL's leading rusher last year, but you were still able to throw the ball around. And So yes, there's been a lot of talk all off season when Brandon Ayuk's going to get his contract extension. I see him staying put. So you're going to have your Brandon Ayuk still. You're going to have Deebo that's healthy. You got Kittle coming off an all-pro year who's healthy. And then you add a first-round draft pick with Ricky Pearsall to be complemented by Juwan Jennings. So they've got talent across the board for Brock Purdy to light it up again. And there's no reason for him to take a step back. And that arm looks stronger than ever. He knows the offense better than ever. Kyle Shanahan trusts him more than he's trusted any quarterback. So, I mean, it's still really fun to watch. Now, a year from now, once they have to pay Brock Purdy his like $50 million a year salary, because he's still only on $1 million on his rookie deal, then that offense may change because you may see, we can't afford this guy or this guy. But right now they can afford it all, and they're all in. I mean, it's amazing because, gosh, I've covered this team 25 years. Very rarely have they had offensive players that are fantasy football worthy, right? They kind of go under the radar. It's like, they just run the ball or they play defense. This offense can go bananas every game. And they're going to have to, because the opposing quarterbacks are going to face some really good ones this year. They're going to be playing catch up. So I see a lot more high scoring games this year. You know what I mean?
Love it.
Yeah.
And one of the games that I'm really keeping an eye on is that Week 17 game, that Monday Night Football game against the Lions. I mean, that NFC Championship game was just, it was a points fest right there. So, I mean, you look at that. I mean, I want all the 49ers and all the Lions on my teams, just because I think that game could swing fantasy football championships at that point. So,
well, I mean, it's late in the season, and it's like before everybody, fantasy football players and the 49ers and the Lions, it's a long way to get to that game. So I'm like, it could be great, but I also think now 2019, when the Niners won the NFC West, they had to go to Seattle in the regular season finale. That was like a match made in scheduling heaven, right? I mean, everything's on the line. Number 1 seed, division championship. There's so much you got to get through to get to that game, right? It's just like, it's really hard to like, for me to like look that far ahead going, because I'm like, are the Lions really for real? I mean, they're the Lions, right? And it's like, was last year a flash in the pan? Are they going to be exposed? People know how to attack them now. Is Jared Goff really the quarterback? It's a really talented team. They kept the offensive coordinator, so that's good on their part. But the Niners still have Kyle Shanahan. They have their quarterback. They have all their offensive stars. Trent Williams did not retire, so everything's still arrow up for the Niners.
Love it. So you talked about the receiving core. It's the big three of Aiyuk, Samuel, and Kittle. And I'm glad you kind of like got the Aiyuk thing. I wasn't even going to ask about that.
Yeah.
So
it is what it is. Yeah.
The pecking order between the three. I mean, you had Aiyuk and Kittle both went over 1,000 yards. Samuel went over 1,000 yards total,
right,
including the rushing. I mean, do these guys just complement one another as well as can be?
I think what it is you're not overly reliant on one guy. You can almost overly rely on Christian McCaffrey, but he's delivered, right? But when it comes to throwing the ball around, each one of those guys can have their moment. Now, Deebo peaked in his career in 2021, right? He's kind of come back to earth the last couple of years in terms of points and yards and all this. But his presence on the field is obviously very felt. Now, with Deebo's contract situation, everybody kind of expects this is a big prove it year for Deebo. If they're going to be paying Aiyuk this year, then it puts Deebo kind of on the short. But that's fine. Deebo knew what he signed up for, which means he can get out of this contract and cash in just like Aiyuk and everybody else, right? So it's not like he's going to be moping. He's going to be wanting to produce. And Aiyuk, if he gets paid like what we expect, or if he doesn't get paid and he's playing on the 5th-year option, well, he's going to want to prove something. Kittle he went over 1,000 yards last year, even though he was injured pretty good. And they kind of just used him in parses, like in the clutch when they needed to, like on a 4th down here, like in the Super Bowl. He had 3 touchdown catches against the Cowboys in week 5. So he obviously can go off when he needs to. And Brock and him have a really good connection, which is really important. So all 3 of those guys, indeed, it's like they're not, get the ball. Well, Deebo is. They all want the ball, right? But Purdy's very judicious and pleasing every one of them. He was apologetic after the Super Bowl that he did not get the ball enough to Aiyuk, and that was for good reason because Aiyuk was open on his final throw across the middle, which like a John Taylor Super Bowl winning touchdown play. But things happen in football. So, but it is a really good unit together. And how much longer it stays together, we don't know. Up here in the Bay Area right now, you're talking about the triplets, right? Aiyuk, Samuel, and Kittle. But right now up here, it's the Warriors dynasty has just lost Klay Thompson, who was the triplets with Steph Curry and Draymond Green for their 4 championships. It happens. It happens to every sport. Right now, the Niners don't just have the triplets. They also have number 4 with Christian McCaffrey, right?
We're going to get into him.
That's what I'm saying. Like, that was one of the first. Last year was such a monumental year because you had 4 guys producing big time numbers.
One question on Kittle before we go to CMC. He had core muscle surgery right after the Super Bowl. How's he progressed?
Yeah, good. I talked to him. This when we were working on the forward. He had the surgery down in Florida. Took it easy for a week, and that guy is a maniacal worker, right? So there's never any question. Everything's progressed as it should. He didn't participate in the offseason workouts, was at mandatory minicamp watching and job shadowing the younger tight ends. But everything's on track with George. And I think the key thing is when a lot of guys have success after that surgery, right? Bosa had it, some other guys had it. So that helps you. That'll help your career. And he dealt with that for at least the last 10 games of the last season, which he was very productive in some of those games. So if you have a healthy George Kittle, you could have big numbers out of George again.
Oh, love it. I co-host an injury podcast with Dr. Edwin Porras, and we were just about to dive into the tight end. So I'm going to give him that report, and we're going to run with that one. Did he finally get the good guy award from the media?
No, I had to, I had to break the news to him the day that we gave it away. And I saw him leaving the players' parking lot, and he stopped me, and we're talking. And he's in his Range Rover, and I'm like, "Hey, I got to tell you something." I go, "We had our Media Good Guy Award." I go, "You finished second." He's like, "Oh, that's nice." He's like, "But I've won it before, haven't I?" Go, "No, you have not." I go, "First of all, I just want you to know I very much appreciate you. We all do. So don't take that." And these guys it's like that's very not even a secondary. It's so distant, right? So we're on the phone, or he's on the phone with his wife in the car seat, and they're like, "Well, who won it?" I said, "Nick Bosa." and George is really good friends with Bosa, but Bosa is such a sneaky thought because he doesn't talk much, but when he talks, he's very revealing and insightful, humorous. It's amazing. So Bosa was really good. And so people voted for him. It's not all my vote. Like, I voted for like 3 or 4 guys, and in fact, Purdy was one of mine because Purdy was so open because of his arm surgery. Yeah. But I mean, George could win it, but there's some talkers on that. I mean, it's a very good locker room, very good. I mean, I think Trent Williams won it the year before, maybe with somebody, but
I remember that.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's fun, but George was not offended. So.
Oh, well, hey, you know what? As long as he keeps talking, I mean, it makes your job easier. So
yeah, absolutely.
Good thing. Well, one guy who seems to make everybody's job easier on this offense, Christian McCaffrey, the undisputed 1.01 in fantasy drafts already. Last year delivered. I mean, this is shout out to Tom Candiotti, former pitcher who's friend of the show.
Candiotti, yes. Walnut Creek or Clayton East Bay guy.
Yeah, huge 49er fan. He told, we talked about starting pitchers and running backs being similar. When they're really good, you just ride them.
Yeah.
Christian McCaffrey, over 2,000 yards. I mean, can we just replicate these numbers for this again?
I don't see why not. I mean, he stayed healthy, but he also played banged up midway through the season.
That's right.
And he sat out the last game because of a calf strain against Washington, but he will play through stuff. And that's important for him. He did get a pay raise this offseason, but he's never been one to me that's financially driven. He's very legacy driven, and he wants a Super Bowl in that legacy. And I really enjoyed covering him this year. He's not a great quote. Like, he's very robotic, but that's a lot of like top-notch athlete. Tiger Woods was not a great quote, but it's like you do what you professionally have to tell you and all this stuff. And so but like off the record and stuff, really, really nice guy, where you can approach him and ask him about some other individual questions. And early in the season last year, I said, Christian, you are leading the NFL in rushing. How important is that for you? Now, the stock answer for pro athletes is, "Oh, it's not about me. It's about, I'm not in this for individual accolades." He said, "Yes, I want to win it because it reflects the team's success." And he was dead on because he let it wire to wire because the offense was dominant wire to wire. And I thought that was really cool. And so he wins the NFL rushing title, the first 49er running back to do it since 1954. That was Joe the Jet Perry, as you well know. And Joe the Jet Perry did that back-to-back years, 53 and 54. So now Christian McCaffrey has motivation to do it, to repeat the same. So
the only problem is you're gonna have to do an addendum to the franchise to, to reflect that. So
it's all good. It'll be that's where
2.0
there's more reading, right? It's all good. So
love it. Love it. The one thing, two things about him that I want. I heard something about him kind of like rejiggering his training regimen after the two years that he was injured, that he suffered injuries in Carolina. He's been remarkably healthy. You mentioned that, he had the calf strain. He had the Minnesota game where there was the question mark up until game time whether he was going to play, and then he played great.
Right.
Has he done things differently with that?
I think he does a lot of explosive training. You can see, like, he'll be working out in Colorado with his trainers there, where he does a lot of bursts. And when you can watch him in practices as the other team warms up, he warms up on the side and does different warm-ups for his own that are tailored to himself, and like high knees and like quick bursts. So like he's very much in tune with his body as he needs to be. And he's getting up there in the age of like NFL running backs, where you're approaching the 30-year-old mark, and you kind of go, oh, well, I think that's kind of getting pushed by guys that know their bodies so well, and they know like how to avoid big time hits. I think, another thing with Christian is he had 3 fumbles last year, which was uncharacteristic. He's not been a fumble prone running back, but he fumbled on the opening drive of the Super Bowl, and that can haunt you, right? And that's the way he's approached this offseason. He's like, no, that's in the past. But I would imagine that's going to weigh on him, where he's going to be wanting to make sure that he is holding onto the ball and getting yards. I mean, the other thing is the guy scored touchdowns, and I don't know how many straight games. It tied an NFL record.
Yeah, 18 or something like that.
He has an incredible knack for the end zone, and it's what you need. And he's got basically the same offensive line. So whether that's good or bad, I would imagine it's good, since he won the NFL rushing title and scored a heck of a lot of touchdowns. So the same pieces are in place for him to succeed.
Oh, awesome. And you mentioned that I was going to ask you about him not taking big hits. It seems like, I mean, the blocking schemes, he doesn't take big hits, and obviously he doesn't either when he's getting golf balls out of the catching balls out of the backfield. So
and I will say this is, it's asking a lot for a running back in the NFL to make it through the whole season healthy, right? So then you look at the depth chart, and the Niners have some pretty darn good options that they, like in years past, like they run out of running back sometimes, like before McCaffrey showed up, because Elijah Mitchell would get hurt. He was extremely healthy this offseason and looked really, really good. But again, it's like you have an injury history with him. So it's like, how reliant are they going to be on him? Jordan Mason was kind of the number 3, kind of a finisher, special teams guy, but he was undrafted a couple years ago. So you don't have a huge commitment to him. And then they brought in 2 rookies, and one of them is Isaac Guerendo, who ran the fastest 40 time of any running back in the combine. He ran a 4.3, very fast, not a lot of mileage, played 6 years in college, almost exclusively as a backup. So he's kind of raw, but he's one of those fast change of pace guys where if McCaffrey needs a breather and you want somebody just to blow by the defense, you stick him in. So when you're like trying to sort out, well, what's the Niners' best option if you're handcuffing a running back? It would probably be Elijah Mitchell. But again, this NFL kickoff rules kind of tweaked a lot of depth charts, I think, because nobody knows who's going to return. Do you stick your running back there to return the stuff? And then, because you usually have 1 or 2 on special teams anyhow. So I'd imagine that's how Guerendo is going to make the team. There's a rookie that they undrafted rookie out of Missouri, Cody Schaffer. I forget. I should know this by now, but I got
Schrader.
I don't know. He was the SEC routine leader, but he's small. He's 5'7". That was LaMichael James small, but he's bigger. He's kind of like Maurice Jones-Drew, a bowling ball with butcher knives or something like that. And that guy would just pound through there. He could be like a practice squad guy and get called up during the year. I like make late flyer or something, last round, something like that. So.
Awesome, awesome. One last guy to ask about on the offense, and it's Ricky Pearsall, the
Yeah.
first round draft pick. I mean, does he look like he might follow the same progression that like Deebo and Aiyuk did, kind of like an uneven rookie year?
Well, Aiyuk got thrust in as a rookie kind of because they ran out of receivers and they needed him to play. And then he got a big head thinking that he was destined for greatness. And so then he got shut down pretty hard the sophomore year.
Oh yeah.
Pearsall is a different kind of guy. Now, mind you, Pearsall and Aiyuk were freshman teammates at Arizona State, which like he's been in like college that long, right? And so he was at Arizona State for a few years, transferred to Florida, did 2 years at Florida, and almost came out a year ago in the draft, decided to stay. And I think that really helped him because it proved that he can be physical and like he's probably going to be playing the slot a lot. So he looked great in the offseason workouts. But I'm like, listen, as a whole different beast once the season starts, especially you're playing on the inside, you got to know how physical contact and be able to break free. His route running, his hands look phenomenal. He's got the right temperament. Looks like a tough wide receiver. And he grew up like right near Purdy in Arizona. So it's kind of like there's maybe something in the water in Arizona. But rave reviews out of Ricky Pearsall right now. So, at some point you're going to have a receiver go down. So you needed wide receiver depth. Niners used number 31 for him, I think mainly for depth purposes and future, because it's very hard for a rookie wide receiver to adapt to this scheme quickly. But if you are essentially just saying, look, Ricky, we're going to use you in the slot and you have a great way to get open, you got great hands, that's what you need there. So he's going to get some action. It's just going to depend on more about the health on the guys in front of him. It's not like he's going to overtake Deebo or Aiyuk on the depth chart. And it's not like they drafted him to stick it to Aiyuk in these negotiations in the offseason. They know they want to keep Aiyuk.
Yeah. I hate the narrative. I don't ever try to feed the narratives that I mean, I know we get them in the fantasy football community, and I just kind of tamp them down. I said, look, just wait for things to happen. Don't predict that things are going to happen. We already don't know a lot. Let's predict what we can. Don't worry about the contracts later. So, gracias for that. That's awesome. You mentioned the offensive line. Anything else you mentioned four of the five starters are returning this year.
All five starters, plus
okay.
like they had basically the right guard split between Feliciano and Spencer Burford. Burford's the one that had the mistake in the Super Bowl at the end.
Oh, that's right.
Feliciano's back, but they also drafted a guard in the third round. He played tackle at BYU. Was it BYU? Kansas. Dominic Cooney. He's a big, strong guy, so he might push for one of the guard spots. Aaron Banks is left guard, but he's going into his contract year too. So it's kind of like, that guy needs money too. And he's playing next to anybody that plays next to Trent Williams looks like an all-pro, right? So Banks, I'd be like, yeah, pay me now. Like, I look great. And then if Trent Williams returns, like, I'm so glad I got my money. But so it's like there's questions on the inside, and at right tackle they still have McKivitz. They brought in old Raiders tackle Brandon Parker and Chris Hubbard that was on the Titans. So they got some veteran depth. But for the most part, it's unchanged, which I think is good because you want continuity's sake on the offensive line. If they can upgrade, then that's great. But right now, it doesn't look like it. So that's where they're going with that.
One quick one on the defense. This has been one of the better run defenses for several years now. Occasionally, when good quarterbacks have been able to get them get the secondary, kind of shaping up that. I mean, you mentioned they could be seeing some shootouts this year against the big quarterbacks.
So the deal is they changed defensive coordinators again, and so now they promoted Nick Sorensen, who's more he knows the scheme more. Steve Wilkes had a different kind of strategy, and Steve Wilkes didn't have the buy-in, I think, of Shanahan and some of the players. So he got bit by a couple bad calls, and so you bring in Sorensen. Guys seem to like him a lot. Like, it seems very sincere that a lot of the defenders they have his back because he's been on the staff for a couple of years. You have Nick Bosa. They brought in some new interior guys, lost Eric Armstead, but you have Javon Hargrave, brought in a couple other new tackles. But you brought in Leonard Floyd, who has a track record of getting a lot of sacks, won a Super Bowl with the LA Rams.
I remember that.
And they brought in Brandon Staley, who was with them at the Rams. So Staley's kind of job shadowing Sorensen, help him if needed. But I think he's more of a helpful communicator with the players to get their point across. Fred Warner's back in the middle, but Dre Greenlaw, Warner's partner in crime at linebacker, tore his Achilles in the Super Bowl. So I'm thinking midseason return for Dre. He can push and pretend he's going to get back for the opener. They shouldn't push it. And then in the secondary, your cornerbacks, Tarvarius Ward was like all Pro Bowl, had a great year last year. And then Diamador Lenore is an LA kid. He really is kind of emerged. And both those guys are going into a contract year. So again, there's money aspects on the table for those guys. They signed, or their second round pick was Renardo Green, who probably is going to play nickel for him. If not, Lenore bumps inside. You bring in Isaac Yiadom from the Saints. See, I know way too many names. I'm ready for camp. Let's go. But there are questions at safety because Talanoa Hufanga was an All-Pro a couple years ago. He had ACL tear in November, so he's pushing to get back for week 1. He may do it. If they bring in a veteran safety, because there's a lot of veteran safeties on the market, would not surprise me. If I was a veteran safety, I'd say, I'm coming to play for the minimum. I want to win a ring. I know Hufanga may or may not be back. Maybe I can beat out this kid who was a rookie last year, and Jair Brown. So it's going to be – I'm more concerned about the edge rushing because for years they need a presence opposite Bosa. Every year they bring somebody in to try it and it just doesn't really work because they need to maximize Bosa. And he just has not had huge breakout games the way he did as a rookie. He won Defensive Player of the Year 2 years ago because he was consistent week in, week out. He wants to have the big breakout games, but he's also an all-around player. He's not just sacking the quarterback. He's pretty good in run defense, unless it's 4th down and Patrick Mahomes is scampering by him on his way to another Lombardi. Oh, that's rough.
Oh man. As a fan, as a football fan, it was an exciting Super Bowl. Anytime you see that come down to, it's that
overtime.
Yeah. Game 7 of the 2016 World Series. It goes to the, Cubs, Indians. They go to they go into extra innings. Just spectacular.
Well, so they will return to the Super Bowl.
Yes.
It will be in New Orleans, which is where they lost the Super Bowl 12 seasons ago under a coach named Jim Harbaugh, who's now back in the NFL, who will reunite with the 49ers in New Orleans. 49ers versus Chargers. 49ers going to win it.
Oh, yes. That would be so. Oh, my goodness. I'm clipping this.
Somebody's got to knock off the Chiefs, and the way to do it is somebody in the division or else get through like the wild card round, right? Because there's no teams ever won it 3 in a row. And no teams ever won Super Bowl 3 years in a row. Chiefs are going to try, so the odds are against them doing it. Somebody has to break through the AFC West. Could be. I mean, Harbaugh's best time as an NFL coach is the first year or two because that message is fresh, motivational, can catch people off guard. Chargers don't have great receivers, right? But guess what? Harbaugh's offense, they run like heck, right? And so it'll be fun to watch. Justin Herbert's a really good quarterback. We'll find out how good. So I don't know. I mean,
that'd be fun.
The NFL is kind of fun, wide open right now, but the Niners, they look like they have the NFC in their grasp again. I mean, I don't see what team is really going to challenge them. I know the Lions were the up and comer. I think the Packers could be just as good as the Lions this year with Jordan Love, another year of development. The Rams caught fire last year, but I think they still have a lot of question marks. They don't have Aaron Donald. Dallas Cowboys are a train wreck every year. The Eagles, I think, had such a bad year last year. They have no choice but to bounce back. I think the Giants are a mess. The Commanders, it's going to take them a year or two. They got a rookie quarterback. NFC South's a disaster, but I think Raheem Morris might get some juice out of the Falcons finally. I mean, for the most part, you look at that and go, yeah, I think the Niners they should be able to run it back to the Super Bowl. And then I mean, the AFC is supposedly loaded, but I think every team has big flaws. So.
Oh, awesome. Speaking of great minds think alike, our compadre Fernando Ramirez, the Sporting Tribune, he pointed out the New Orleans, the Harbaugh New Orleans.
Oh, he must have gotten that from me.
He probably did.
He's a good dude. He's a good guy.
Well, but just no blackout during the Super Bowl, please.
The only thing I didn't like about the blackout, there were 2 things wrong. One, we thought it was a terrorist attack, right? You're like, what the heck just happened? And Joe Staley, who for my book, he thought he was on the field. He thought it was a terrorist attack too. Nobody knew what was going on. But the second panic you get as a sports writer is, do I have to rebook my flight? How do I get an extra night in a hotel room? You worry about yourself, and it's like okay, where else could they play it? Do they move it to Tulane to finish out the there's so many things that go through your mind, and you're like, okay, so it got all worked out fine. Jed York put the plug back in, and the Niners were able to rally and almost won that Super Bowl. So
Another great Super Bowl. I don't know what it is about the 49ers playing great Super Bowls. So though in the Montana Young, they seem to win big most of the time, unless it was the Bengals they were playing.
Yep.
Oh, mi amigo, this has been awesome. I've smiled and laughed and just enjoyed. I know your Camarón tacos are your favorite. Any recent discoveries or?
My wife made some great flautas the other night. Oh, but you know what? She did a shrimp avocado salad on the side, which is tremendous.
Goodness. Oh, well, no, because remember, we could say camarón avocado salad on this show. Sí, muy bien.
Camarones. Camarones Diablo.
Oh, eso es bueno. Lo mejor. See, that way, the Diablo make it extra caliente, so it gets the sweat going up on my head. It's just awesome. Amigo, let's plug the book one more time.
Okay, so it's the franchise San Francisco 49ers. It'll officially be in bookstores, I think, September 24th, but you can pre-order now. Might get it earlier. Amazon.com. Oh, leave a review to say, Cam's great. I can't wait to read this book. Tremendous insight I learned. And then it's also Barnes & Noble. Triumph Books is the publisher. And I should have some copies if you see me out and about at Niner games this season. So hit me up. Get your book.
I might have to make my way to SoFi Stadium when they come down and get you to sign it, mi amigo. So...
Levi's South, as they call it.
Muy cierto.
It is the 49ers Southern California vacation home.
Yes. And most teams, Packers and Steelers and those teams.
They would love that stadium even more had they not lost an NFC championship in it. So,
oh man,
kudos to the Rams for doing it. Yeah,
it's one of those games are always fun. So, mi amigo, thank you so much. Muchas gracias for joining us, familia. Make sure you're following Cam at Cam Inman on Twitter, at 49ers Cam on Instagram. So, muchas gracias otra vez. Also, make sure you're going to Familia FFB on YouTube. Hit that like, hit that subscribe, and one last plug. Let's get over to Underdog Fantasy. Use the Familia promo code. It's all, family in Spanish, familia. You know why? Because todos somos familia. Salud.